Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jam Box.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jam Box. We're here and we're back at it again, but before we get on into it, as always, make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know where they are, and I trust you. But now let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
What's up, y'all? I'm Winslow. Very happy to be here on Jimmy's Jam Box.
Hell yeah, man. Super glad to have you. Thanks for coming by. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about, where you're from, what you do. Give us that, Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Yeah, if you want to put it that way. So I grew up around Atlanta. I'm pretty new to the Portland area and just moved here last summer. And I got to say, Portland is awesome, this area. And Oregon in general, the natural beauty is just on a whole other level from anywhere else I've been, really. But yeah, so I'm loving it here in Portland. Grew up in Atlanta, just west of Atlanta, and been playing music pretty much my whole life. Started with guitar, taught myself playing guitar starting when I was 8 or 9 years old. Just kind of worked at it for a long, long time. Was in bands in middle school, high school. The first real band I was in was a metal band.
Okay, same.
So I was a metal guitarist. That's really how I kind of identified myself musically for a long, long time, through high school, college, and after. And then I inherited my great-grandmother's upright piano.
Okay.
And I started just messing around on it, and I found out that piano is where I could actually write songs. So that's when I started writing songs, probably in my mid-20s or somewhere in there, 25, something like that. I just started writing songs for the first time and singing, which I was never really considered myself a singer up until that point. But yeah, piano really opened up a whole new world musically for me. But I still never it was just a hobby for a long time.
Just before we get away from that, did you find it was easier to sing while playing piano? Did you find that piano brought out singing maybe because there was a wider register in total, you could find where your voice was easier?
For sure. I don't know exactly why, but singing and playing guitar is not really my strong point. I can play chords as an accompaniment and sing along a little bit, but nothing complicated. My mind just doesn't work that way to do two things at the same time,
A lot of this.
But on piano, I think what it is my left hand would always be doing the bass. So I'd keep a really simple beat going, almost like a drum beat, and just keep the bass going. And then my right hand can do a lot more complicated stuff. And singing just kind of came naturally. My hands were free to do whatever they needed to do, and it opened up a lot of doors for sure.
Hell yeah, that's really interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just before we got away from that one.
No, that's all good. It's all good. So where was I? I played piano just at home. I'd play for my family, friends, and jam with friends and stuff like that. But nothing. Nothing professional or nothing really concrete. Just kind of playing around. I did record an album back in 2016, I think, under the artist name Stargazer.
Good name.
Which most of the songs were piano based because I had just kind of started writing songs. But it was recorded with a family friend of mine who it was kind of a classic rock vibe to it. But I didn't really promote it or anything. It was just more of a pet project kind of thing. So it wasn't until very recently that I decided I'm going to actually try and record something and make a professional album, studio album, and really give myself a chance to put something out there and see what people think. I guess the turning point was in November. I was front row at the Post Malone concert in Portland.
Oh, damn.
And yeah, on the floor, got tickets surprisingly cheap on the floor. And man, it was an awesome show. But like the whole time I was there with my wife, we were front row, and he was putting on this amazing show. And I was just thinking, it's just one man and a microphone.
Yeah.
And like all this music is just playing in the background, and he's a very talented guy. Like I know he wrote a lot of this. He probably performed a lot of it, recorded a lot of the instruments, but then he's just there with a microphone, you know, when it comes to performing it. I was like, I think I could do something like that, you know, because I can play a bunch of different instruments. I can write songs. I just can't do them all at the same time, you know, like.
I was actually I can't remember who I was having a conversation with about this, but I was talking to somebody who they were talking about, they're like, yeah, like I'm working on these things, and like I can play guitar, and I can sing, and I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do this. And I was like, yeah, but how much of the performance do you, like how much of the like enjoyment of music do you lose by doing all those things versus if you do like 2 or 3 of them versus 5 or 6 of them, and you have the most fun you can have, and then just ask somebody else to do the other 3 and let them have fun doing that, then you're both having fun together, and that's more fun. You know,
Yeah.
like we focus so hard on all these people who can do. I mean, you look at Mark Riblet. Perfect example. I don't know if you're familiar.
I'm not. No.
Oh, you are definitely going to love
I'm gonna have
Mark
to look
Riblet.
that up.
Shout out Mark. He performs with an RC 505. Which is it's like the floor pedal loop station that everybody uses.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It's basically the hand version. It's got like circular buttons instead of the like pedal ones. It's got I think 5 instead of 3. Like it's a more competent version designed for like desktop. And he uses a huge bundle. It's not Native Instruments bundle. It might be Native Instruments bundle. Don't quote me. I'm sorry, Mark. I don't know. But he uses a huge library of plug-in instruments and a bunch of like hand percussions. So, you know, he's got like a banana shaker and a tambourine, and then just a microphone. He uses like an AKG, I think an A4000. I wonder if that's right. I can't remember the model anymore. But he used to use like an AKG handheld mic, and that was his whole rig. And he would make drums with the computer. He'd make all the bass and the guitar and the keys and all this stuff. And then like all the percussion would be hand, and he would just layer all of it and just loop all of it and like change it all and do all these things. But even Mark technically only performs with 3 things. He has the computer, he has his percussion, and he has his microphone. Like his setup, like yes, one of them has a million things in it, but he's just playing theory. He's still just using just a MIDI controller, and he's achieving so much because he found a way to minimize the difficulty of process in exchange for being able to put out prominent music, to be able to put out something with energy, something with feeling. He isn't letting the process delay his performance.
Yeah.
Like even his setup stuff, like when he has to change 4 or 5 things, he'd like hop into it. He's like, yeah, let me make a thing real quick. There you go. There's something to jam with. How are we doing? And like he keeps it going long enough to change over. But there's a few or far in between. He did a like an on the spot like jam with Flylo and Reggie Watts.
Yeah, I know Reggie Watts.
Yeah.
So it's like similar situation.
Yeah.
It's like,
exactly. So him and Mark Riblet and Fly Lotus, they did, and I've talked about this on the show before, but they did just like a jam. It was like an hour and 20 minutes long. It was just in the room, all 3 of these guys just making sounds with each other.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. It's so cool. So
That's awesome.
There you go. But I have tangented far. Let's get back into this. And I'm actually going to jump back in with a question that's kind of a crowd favorite. Everybody's a big fan of this one.
Yeah.
What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Ooh.
So not like one that mom or dad had, like the first one that you were like, I have this many monies, I'm going to buy this music.
First album I ever bought, I'm not 100% sure about this, but just based on what has popped into my head right when you asked the question, I think it might have been Evil Empire, Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
Because I remember the album cover, and I remember getting the CD like from the store, and I was like super excited about it. So I don't know if I may have bought something before that, but that's the one I remember for sure.
Now, were your parents cool with that?
Yeah. I was in high school by the time I bought it. It was late, way after it had been out. But I was like, I have an older brother who kind of introduced me to a lot of the 90s music, and so like I had already been listening to it, and I was like, oh yeah, Rage is badass. They're awesome. So that was somewhere I wanted to to put my money for sure.
Hey, that makes sense. I like asking the question now because half the people bring it up and half the people don't, and it's so split down the middle on whose parents were cool with stuff versus weren't cool with stuff. So this is more for science.
Yeah, well, my parents were both music fans, so I mean they were kind of, you know, they listened to the heavier stuff in the 70s, you know, edgier things, so they were down with it. And actually, my dad was really into the 90s grunge movement, so like he was also filtering things down to me at the same time.
So yeah, he was always playing heavier stuff than you anyways. Yeah, he was like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Kids are kids.
Yeah, actually, I think I could be wrong about this too, but I think my mom actually took my brother to a Rage concert.
Okay.
And I don't know if she realized what she was getting into.
You know what? I try not to tell this story too often, so it spaces out. But the first live show I ever went to was Ozfest 2004.
Nice.
Up in Seattle.
Okay.
Or like Tacoma, somewhere up there. And it was for my 16th birthday, and my dad wouldn't let me go. And so my mom was like, well, if you want, you can come up here, you can do it here. And he wouldn't go with me.
Yeah.
The part of it, but she's like, dude, I'll go with you.
Nice.
So here I was, 16, walking around with my mom at one of the cool, the headliners were, it was Mudvayne, Black Label Society, In Flames, Iron Maiden, and then I think it was Ozzy or Black Sabbath. One of the two, you know. Like by that point, I was a real tired Jimmy. I was only 16. My stamina had worn out.
Yeah, at the time, you were probably thinking like, "Oh man, I'm here with my mom." But then now you think back and it's
are you kidding, dude?
I've got the coolest mom. Like this is awesome.
my mom always really, she never like stopped me from like letting me be me. So like when I was there, she was just like, you know, like vibe with the music. She didn't make a negative comment once. She was she doesn't vibe with that kind of music. It's not her thing. She's not like huge on like that kind of stuff. But never once was she like, all right, whenever you're ready, or like, these guys, like, I can't, like, she was just like, yeah, you having a good time? Cool, you're having a good time. Check it in. Like, we're having a great time. Like, everything was good the whole time. So that was fun.
Yeah, very similar with my mom actually, but she's more classic rock concerts. She's a huge Beatles fan, so I've had the privilege of going with her to see Paul McCartney multiple times.
Man, that's powerful.
And man, he puts on an awesome show. Even like last time I saw him, I think he was like 72 or something. I mean, but he still plays for like 4 hours. Like he just goes on and on and on and plays every single hit and like jams on things. And he's playing the guitar, he's playing the bass, it's like, how do you do this, man? You're just an amazing person.
The music keeps you alive at a certain point.
Yeah.
Dude, look at Billy Idol.
Yeah.
He looks incredible for his age. Like, he's got to be in his 60s by now. I think I looked up once, it was like 64 or something. Like, you know, like he's not getting any younger, but he's still like, he looks great. He's got the movements. He's got his sound is so particular that of course he's going to have that. But like, he moves. He probably moves better than me.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
You got to stay active. That's
you stay
the key.
Active, you stay
active,
shape.
you stay young longer. I think that's the key.
That and the music. I think like, if you have that in you, like it never goes away. Like there's never a day where you're like, I just think I'm going to not enjoy music anymore. You know what I mean? Like, if it makes you do that much to begin with, it's not something that I hope, I hope it's not something that tapers off at any point.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely been my experience. Like, that's why, now I'm 33 years old and I'm finally like, you know what? I've been writing songs and playing music for like 15 years now, at a pretty high level. So I should actually do it. Like I should really do it for real, to give it a chance. So,
that's, I think the jumping off at jumping into something at some point, it's the only way to do it. We were talking about it off mic, the being bad at something is the first step to being kind of okay at something. And it doesn't matter what age you do it. Cause I'm much closer to you in age than I am most of the people that I interview. And so like, I didn't start in on this until I was super, not old, but like I'd already been doing music for a long time. I was already established and, like I did the car stuff and the identity. Yeah. So at some point picking like your shape, your opportunity, your presentation and just doing it, there's never a bad time to do it except for never doing it.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I'm trying to put out there now is like, it's never too late to pursue something, to pursue a passion or to, strike out and do something that you've always wanted to do. It's better to give it a shot, because you much rather give it a shot and then, you don't blow up, whatever, but at least you put something out there, you put your art out, people heard it, and you expressed yourself and put it into the world, rather than keeping it to yourself, and then nobody ever hears it,
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, not wish, but like sometimes I'd be curious to hear the narrative of there is such a thing as too young or like too early. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have been able to handle doing this at like 23. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have had the focus, the attention, the understanding, like the like, like the cordialness. Like I wouldn't have had that like world experience.
Yeah,
so like
for sure.
Some stuff like I feel like you even have to grow into. Like I think a lot of us spend a lot of time looking for how to get to point B as quickly as possible, and this isn't one of those the journey is the destination type things.
Yeah.
But I think that there's some things that you have to grow through along the way. Like you have to do things the way that they're presented to you. Because that's the only way In the beginning, you're going to get the things that everybody uses or talks about. You're going to have those like, we all had those things in the beginning where we're like, wow, we really didn't even need this, or like we could have done this instead. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to do the first steps first and figure out what you don't like or what isn't good or what like you would do different. You have to figure out what it is that makes the process the most you.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of all what the one single I have out right now that's released is called Win Slow, sort of like self-titled play on words. But that's kind of the whole idea, was that like, I've been living my life. I've had multiple careers, got a family. I've been doing things, and the music wasn't so much a part of it. It was on the sidelines, but it's always been there, and it's just been growing. So like, you can still win even if you take the slow route. It doesn't have to happen overnight. You can, you can build the skills. You can have experiences that are unrelated. And then when the time is right, you'll just kind of know.
Yeah.
You gotta wait for the right opportunity.
Well, and you have stuff to talk about.
Exactly.
You have stories to tell.
Got life experience. Yeah.
I don't remember which artist it is, but there's an artist who like actively does like studio for 5 years and then doesn't do studio for 5 years. And when someone was like, well, why aren't you in the studio? Like you could be turning out hits. And they're like, no, I can't. I don't have any experiences to write about.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to talk about. Like if you want hits, I need to go do things to make hits about.
Yeah. To get inspiration from.
Yeah. Like the what is it? Art is just life reflected back at it.
Yeah.
And that, that same has to be said with music. Like music is, a reflection of life around you and the people around you. So,
yeah, for sure.
But man, I'm loving this already. This is going to be fun. These are just kind of the last couple foundation questions.
Okay.
The first one is, tell us about the first show you ever went to.
Okay, first show I ever went to.
Same caveat that you like chose to like that you were like, I bought these tickets, I'm going to this.
Yeah.
Like
first live show. I think it was Paul McCartney actually. At Chastain, which I don't even think is a venue anymore in Atlanta. It was at Chastain Park. Or, you know what? I may be mixing it up. I think it might have been Ringo Starr, actually. It was one of the Beatles, but Ringo Starr and his all-star band, I think, was the first one I went to. And, like, he had multiple other stars with him from the 80s, so it was like a group performance thing. But yeah, I think that was probably the first one I went to. Yeah, I was like borderline obsessed with the Beatles in my early teen years.
Like, love my old guitarist Corey.
I would sit there and handwrite lyrics, listening to the songs, because it was before Google, I think, actually. And I'm dating myself, but I would like listen to the song and handwrite the lyrics to every single one of them to memorize them.
Yeah, I did that with a Tech Nine song once. I heavily don't recommend that. I don't recommend that at all. But I mean, man, even if it was Ringo, that's such a powerful like first experience.
Yeah, with so much history behind it, because
yeah.
Well,
I mean, just on top of being like an epicenter for music at the time, like they were involved with so many people, and to have so many people at the show as well.
Yeah, it was a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, for like the performance, man, that's. Ugh.
Yeah, I think Jeff Beck was there. The guitarist. I mean, he was a huge inspiration for me too, because. I don't know if we were talking on mic or before, but for a long time I just identified myself as a guitarist. Like that was my music. Like I would play the guitar, lead guitar, whatever. And Jeff Beck was like my idol. He would, because that's what he did. Like he would actually release instrumental albums that were hits in the 70s, and it was like nobody else was doing that, just because he would play awesome stuff on the guitar.
Man, yeah, you're telling me. All right. now we've come to it. We're going to dive into more of the artist focused questions. Let's get under the surface
All right,
on this.
let's do it.
First of all, I mean, you kind of already explained it, but let's get a hard definition of the name.
The name of
or your name
of
sorry.
me, my name,
your artist name.
Winslow. So Winslow is actually my middle name, and it became my artist name when I had the idea of the concept of winning slow. Which I guess I see myself doing in life, like where you just take advantage of stuff as it comes to you and stay open to all possibilities, and when the possibilities are there, then you take the avenues that open up. So it's kind of like a lifestyle, not entirely defined, that I have, I guess, was the idea of winning slow, that you don't have to always, kind of force life to happen. You can observe your surroundings, see where the wind's blowing, and, follow what seems to be right. If you can tap into it, tap into whatever it is that feels right, in your life, and just kind of go with it. So that's the idea behind it. I sort of formulated it really when I was biking to work one day and had a hook just sort of pop into my head. I'm always humming when I'm doing anything pretty much. And so I just had this hook pop into my head that you ain't got to win fast if you want to win slow. Got a lot of plans I've been saving up for. And like the whole thing just kind of popped into my head. Yep. And I was like, that's going to be a song. And then I'm going to build an album around it. Like that was the idea.
Well, there it is.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I could dig that. Now, tell us a little bit more about your writing process. Like, what do you do when it comes to like putting a song together? Where do you start? What do you think about for like the length of it? Like, just take us through it.
Yeah, so most of my songs start out on piano, for the most part. Some of them I start with guitar. Others I've started with like a synth beat, but for the most part it's something on the keys, and that's where I get my chord progressions worked out and work out some kind of vocal cadence to go with it. But then, on the album that's coming out, a lot of times the piano gets pulled off by the time we add everything else in. So it's just kind of a step-by-step thing. But my writing process, usually there will be some specific inspiring event that I'm thinking about, and it'll be separate. And then I'll be, just jamming. Basically, anytime I write a song, I'm like playing on piano, and I'll just be playing around. And if I play long enough, something happens and I'm like, that's a cool vibe. And then I pull from whatever events I've been thinking about, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to match these together. I'm going to match like whatever I've been thinking about going on in my life or whatever in the world. And then I'm going to try and match it to whatever this jam that I just came up with is, and just meld them together pretty much.
Hell yeah. Do you have like your own recording stuff at home, or do you work with somebody?
So I do both. So I usually my process, I'm working with Brave and Fortune Studios. My producer's Echo the Savage, who is a very talented, awesome guy. If anybody's looking for somebody to record with,
I'm familiar with the name.
Yeah, he's he really. So my album, and I guess I'll get back to your question in a second, but my album is very multi-genre, because like the way songs come to me, they're all very different. Like so the project has turned into like just putting a whole bunch of different genre songs together under one artist name and one production and all that, and trying to give them some cohesiveness, but they're very different from each other. And he's been totally on board with that, like very open-minded, and he'll put a rhythm track to whatever I come to him with. So like I'll start at home, record stuff in GarageBand or whatever at home to get the ideas down, and then take it to his studio and really kind of finalize things.
Hell yeah. Okay, I could dig that. Now, actually, coincidentally, I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit about the upcoming project.
Yeah, so the project is a 12-song album, which we're pretty much done recording at this point. We're just going back and kind of putting final touches, got to get things mastered.
Do you know roughly how long it's going to be time-wise?
I don't know exactly. I couldn't really put a time on it, but there's going to be some music being released sometime in the near future.
I meant the duration of the total album.
It's 12 songs. So the album is about 45 minutes of music, something like that. But yeah, as far as release dates, I don't know exactly yet on that. But yeah, it's a lot of personal stuff, but I try to really take personal, inspiring stories and then generalize them in a way that people can relate
Make them
to.
relatable,
That's the idea. Anyway, that's the hope. But yeah, it's I think I'm going to call it cycles. I'm
Nice.
really kind of into cycles and following the cycles of the earth and the universe and kind of hippy dippy stuff like that.
I thought it was because you liked biking.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I think I'm going to call it cycles, and it's 12 songs, which is a very special number, and I'm going to divide it into kind of 3 songs and 4 parts to be the 4 seasons.
Gotcha.
So there's going to be a spring set of 3 songs that are kind
I
of a
love
similar
that.
vibe.
I love that.
There's going to be a summer set of 3 songs that are a similar vibe. And that's kind of the way I came up with, like, well, if I'm going to put all these different songs that are so different from each other, different genres and everything, on one album, I've got to have some
separation.
unifying factor or something to explain why they're so different. So I came up with a season separation idea.
Is there going to be like a concept album like skit in between each one to kind of like
Not
a
yet.
spoken word mood change?
Not yet. Hey, I'm open to all possibilities.
Okay,
so
well,
we'll see.
we'll put it on here so you can look back on it later. But it'd be cool
Yeah.
if like you open it with like something saying like setting the tone just in like an almost like very like somber mood because it's winter, and then like you lighten up on the next one going into spring, and then you get energetic
Yeah, or
on that.
maybe something natural too, like like birds chirping.
Yeah,
birds chirping
exactly.
for spring.
So atmosphere,
like something
atmosphere.
for summer. Yeah, something from nature to kind of be the in betweens. There's already some songs that have waves in them,
Yeah.
like so that could work.
Yeah, well, just fun conceptual idea. I'm a big fan of concept albums.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you all about one we had for my old band Smooth Talk. Shout out Smooth Talk. When we get off, I don't want to put it on here.
Okay, cool.
It would become a very long experience otherwise.
Yeah.
But let's keep on going on this one. Have you performed any shows under the Winslow name yet?
I have, yeah. So I've kind of dipped my feet in. I've been focusing mostly on trying to get the album done in the
Yeah.
studio, but I've dipped my feet in at the Flow Show
Nice.
and at Late Lyrics. So part of the album has a hip hop vibe to it, which I'm very new to the hip hop game. But
Yeah.
that's been fun, and it's been freeing, musically too, because you've got a beat that you can really just vibe with for the
Yep.
whole song. And to go back to the Post Malone thing, a lot of my more rock songs, it'd be harder to perform them live without a whole band.
Yeah.
So like with hip hop, it's pretty standard to just be one person with a microphone. So yeah, I did the Flow Show and did Late Lyrics and performed some of the songs from the album and had a great time. I mean, those were the first time I had been on stage in probably like 8 years or more, even since I was in a metal band, just playing lead guitar. So it was my first time as a vocalist and as a songwriter and as like a front man and all that, being on stage, and it was a lot of fun.
There's definitely something different to being in that like a different position on the stage than you're used to.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like,
Yeah, it was a whole different thing. I mean, like playing lead guitar, you'd step forward during solos and stuff, but like
Yeah.
usually you're just keeping the music
Yeah.
going and you can just be vibing on your own. You don't have to really
You don't
get
have
the
to look
crowd
at
going. Yeah, you don't have to look
people.
at
Yeah.
people. Don't have to really focus so much on the performance because you're performing the instrument, right?
Yeah.
So my goal really for this project, as far as live performances, is to have a band, but to also incorporate performing some of the instruments myself. Like for certain songs, I'd love to be on the piano,
Yep.
because the ones that still have that vibe, it's just a better performance when you're playing the piano and singing it, playing guitar solos and things like that. I'd like to still do as much of that as I can. But yeah, that's...
I mean, I think there's still definitely room to do like those kinds of things. Like, I think as long as you're not like trying to like make the beat and make the bass and make all the synth sounds and then go over here and then pick up the...
To go back to Reggie Watts and that whole thing, like I have dreams of doing like a whole loop thing,
Yeah.
but I just don't know if it would work with a lot of my songs because there's a lot of movement to the song, a lot of changes, different instruments coming in and going out, and like somebody very talented might be able to figure it out, but it would take a lot of work to get it all to be like a one-man band thing,
No, trust me, I get it. All right, now before we kind of move on to the next section, I wanted to touch base on just another aspect of your life because I think it's really interesting and it's always fun to hear what people do outside of music.
Yeah.
So you teach social studies on, I believe, the high school level.
Yep.
What got you interested in both teaching and the topic that you teach, but in particular?
So teaching in general, I was actually so I've had a couple of interesting careers, honestly. So let me breeze through some of that first. I majored in philosophy in college, which anybody who's a philosophy major knows that there's not any jobs for philosophy majors. So like at the time I was like, oh, whatever, I'll figure it out. This is interesting stuff. I like to, consider possibilities and exercise my mind, right? But then come graduation time, I was like, well, I got to do something. So I also really liked animals and like particularly big cats, like exotic cats. So I was like, I guess I'm going to search online and see if there's internships somewhere. Ended up finding this internship at a zoo in South Africa.
Okay.
And so I moved there and lived there for like 3 months, working at the zoo, lived on site, working with, cheetahs, lions, the whole shebang. And it was awesome, like amazing experiences. Seems like a whole different lifetime. And so while I was doing that, I was like, maybe I can make a career out of this. Like, got a philosophy degree, but whatever. Come back and work at different sanctuaries. Eventually got a job at Zoo Atlanta. Worked there with gorillas mainly, as a gorilla keeper for like 4 years. And then it turns out working as a zookeeper is also a really awesome job, cool experiences. But because it's so cool, there's a lot of people that want to do it.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to pay you anything because there's always another person to come replace you, right?
For less money, yep.
So then I'm, growing, older into adulthood, thinking about the long term. I'm like, there was a particular moment when I realized I can't do this much longer. My manager got promoted to like lead keeper or something. And she was very excited about it. She had been working at the zoo for 10 years and just got promoted to lead keeper, making like $35,000 a year. And I was like, I was about 4 years in. I was like, yeah, I don't think I can make that work. So then I became a park ranger for a little while. Turns out that's a similar story. Sounds really cool. A lot of people want to do it. But in that time span when I was switching from being a zookeeper to a park ranger, I met my future wife, and she was an elementary school teacher.
Oh, okay.
And so, as we were, getting married and all that, I saw like, well, you're off all summer, and you get every weekend off, and every holiday off, and you get paid pretty well. And I also like school anyway. I was always kind of an academic person, nerd in school. So I was like, I think I'm going to go back and become a teacher. So that's kind of where I led myself into becoming a teacher. Social studies was always what I'm most interested in, history and philosophy. So that's what got me there. So that's pretty much how I ended up there. The content I'm particularly most interested in, and anybody, my family and friends who know me will tell you I'm borderline obsessed with ancient civilizations.
Okay.
So like I study that a lot in my free time about like the amazing achievements that they were able to create, particularly megalithic structures, just giant stone structures that we can't even really do now.
Yeah.
And we can't fully explain how they were able to do it then. I just can't stop thinking about it.
I believe there's a wise man on the History Channel that says aliens?
Aliens,
no,
exactly. No. So a word on ancient aliens. They do bring attention to some really cool things, like really cool mysteries. But
then they keep blaming aliens.
They jump to conclusions, which as a philosophy major, you take classes in logic. You can't jump to the conclusion, know? So yeah, it's but those type of things just fascinate me. So I've read all about it and, gone down all kinds of rabbit holes to figure out how in the world is there so much we don't know about our own history, our own species? Like we feel like we know so much because we're, we consider ourselves at the peak of civilization right now. But then we look back and it's like, we can't explain how they were able to achieve this with supposedly such simple means. So yeah, that's kind of what got me into.
Well, see, it ties back to what I was saying earlier. When you have less tools, you just have to try harder.
Exactly. You get
we
creative.
Did it, y'all. We got back to there.
It breeds creativity. You figure out a way, man. Figure out a way. So yeah, that's kind of what keeps my free time busy, which don't have much of these days. But yeah, I'm fascinated by it.
Hell yeah. Do you this is kind of like an off-the-cuff question, so if there's not a direct answer, that's fine. But is there anything that you've learned from teaching that you've translated into music? And it's fine that there's not a connection. This is kind of a grab question.
No, there actually it's. I don't know if it's necessarily what you're thinking of, but what I've learned from teaching. I've been teaching high school, so I'm teaching the generation below me. They're the ones that kind of decide what's cool, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So like they're the ones who most music stuff is targeted to. They're the ones that are setting the trends on stuff. So I've been able to bounce things off of them for sure.
Okay.
So like up until recently, I wasn't really recording things, but I would show some of my music to students and kind of let them vibe with it and get tips from them. Really,
kids are going to be honest.
Yeah,
kids are going to be honest.
They were. Yeah, they were. But no, it was helpful. And just being able to play to an audience too. As a teacher, you're kind of putting on a performance every day. You're in front of a crowd of kids, and it's nice because it's the same crowd every time, so for a while anyway. So like you get to know them and create a relationship. But yeah, you're pretty much putting on a performance. So I think it's definitely helped me in terms of like being on stage, that sort of thing, the performance aspect.
That makes perfect sense. That's a really cool correlation. Glad we asked.
Yeah.
All right, now let's dive into some hypothetical questions.
I love hypotheticals.
Cool. If you could work with any one artist that's still alive, and it could only be so if it's from a group or anything like that, and I feel like I may know who it might be, but who would it be?
Then I'd have to go with Post Malone.
Okay.
Who's still, Paul McCartney's still alive. That would be a dream, of course.
I was 50-50 split on those, so I was like, all right, I have a feeling.
But I mean, Post Malone was really was a huge inspiration for my current project because he blends genres a little bit, he's into the hip hop vibe, but then he's also he's got love songs, and he's also like he even releases some stuff that's like borderline country, and like sometimes he'll pull out an acoustic guitar. So
didn't he start on that? I think he used to do covers or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a
like way back then. I
think that's like his origin. Like he used to do those kinds of things, like acoustic guitar singer.
I think I saw on like a late night show he was on. They showed like a YouTube clip of him when he was like 14.
Yeah,
and he was like playing a guitar, in his basement or whatever, playing some kind of country song. So that would be awesome.
Hell yeah. Now, subsequently,
real quick before I move on, another huge inspiration because I'm one of my other goals is to bring back guitar solos to popular music. Okay. So like most of the songs on my album have guitar solos, which is not a common thing these days. But I had that idea, probably 2 years ago. I was like, I want to somehow make like modern music, but then bring back like the 70s guitar solo deal to it. And then shortly after that, my wife was like, oh, check out this new song that Post Malone collaborated with Ozzy Osbourne on. And I was he beat me to it, and he already did it. Brought the guitar solos back and everything. So yeah, I'm trying to kind of get on that same wavelength, I guess.
Oh yeah, I could dig that. Oh man, I got to shout out Corey again now. That was like his bread and butter. Like whenever it came to like us writing music, he's like, "Do I get a solo?" Yeah, and we were like, "Yes, Corey, you get a solo."
Yeah. You got to have the guitar solos, man. I mean, it was just growing up with records, man. That was the thing. It was in
everything. It was like that was the moment you would wait for. Sometimes you're like, "Oh, it's coming! Yeah. Time to jump off some furniture."
Yep, those were the iconic moments back in those '70s albums, man. So I'm trying to bring it back.
Oh, I'm definitely a big fan. All right, now, subsequently to the original question, who is a local artist that you're aware of that you would like to work with?
Oh, man, so I've kind of, because I went to the Flow Show and Late Lyrics, I've kind of dived into the local hip-hop scene, and there's a lot of really awesome artists out there. The Pharmacy, KG King and Shane Taylor and Jedi. They're a really awesome group of guys. I've kind of talked to them a little bit. Shane Taylor hosts the Flow Show, so it seems like they're just real guys, and they also make really cool music. So that'd be fun to work with them.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully somebody who knows them is watching this show and put you all together in that way. That'd be cool.
For sure.
That'd be cool. Now, this is going to be a really tough question because you already do so many.
Okay.
If you had to pick a completely different genre than any genre you've done so far, so if you've done it It's off the list.
Okay.
But if you had to pick a completely different genre and you would be equally as competent as you are in whatever is your most proficient one, which would you pick?
Yeah, that is a tough question. So I'm trying to like
Yeah,
mentally
you're
going.
gonna-
I'm going through my songs. Like I've got some straight rap songs. I've got some like southern rock song. I've got like a 80s metal song. Got like a theatrical type of movie soundtrack kind of thing going on.
Well, I guess you're doing Latin jazz.
Yeah. I think maybe jazz would be the way to go. I guess. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that would qualify as jazz. I can't claim that I would be equally as proficient at it.
But in the hypothetical, you would be.
But I
that's-
I think that's where I'd have to go.
Jazz it is. Hell yeah. What's the old saying? If it's two notes, it's wrong. Or if you play two wrong notes, it's wrong. If you play three wrong notes, it's jazz.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I love pulling out old timey statements for the show and just having people go.
And I do love the idea of the freestyle jam. You know, I'm also a big Fish fan.
Yep.
So like just being able to, you know, them live in concert is amazing because they just go and go and go, and like it's different every time. Like you may know the song, but it's
Yeah, but
different
you don't.
because you don't really know what they're gonna do. So I love that aspect of jazz too. That it's just, you know, freedom. It's like true freedom.
I know this isn't technically jazz, but another old saying for y'all is whenever Grateful Dead comes into town, if someone's like, "Oh yeah, they played a 2-hour concert," the response is, "What song did they play?"
Yeah, what song?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, they played one whole song this time.
Yep.
Hell yeah! All right, it's time to start wrapping it up.
Okay.
Well, obviously you have the album coming up. Do you have any shows? Do you have any other big things coming up towards let's say the end of July, beginning of August?
Nothing booked. No. You know, I've got kind of a busy July traveling, so I'm going to be out of town a lot.
Okay.
But I'm planning to really hit the ground running in August because I think by that time I'll have my masters back with the album, and so I'll have a lot more.
You're gonna be ready to promote
a lot
it.
more open to me. You know, right now I've just got the one single that's out, "Wind Slow," on all platforms. And so, you know, I can perform that one and promote it, but the others are all just kind of like pieces, you know, I've given hints to, but I don't really have the whole song to throw out there. So
totally. Well, when that's ready to come out, maybe we'll have to get you back for a little Jimmy's Jambox live session.
I'd love to come back.
That'd be fun.
I'd love to come back and promote it once it's out.
Hell yeah. Now for this next one, go ahead, look at the camera, tell people how they can connect with you, find you, check out your stuff in the future.
All right. So best way to find me and any information about my upcoming music and releases is on Instagram at winslowmusic, win.slow.music. So that's typically where I put out releases and promotional stuff, you know, video clips and anything like that. So any information, check it out.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on the show?
Hey, I wish I had, but I'm new to the scene, new to the game. You know, shout out to my wife for supporting me on this venture. Thank you very much for letting me invest so much time and energy into this. And shout out to Echo, my man Echo the Savage producer. You've really taken my music to a whole nother level. So I appreciate that.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, then we've got one last question. This
Okay, this is the one you told me was the surprise.
This is the one. This is how we close up every time. It's definitely a crowd favorite. What is your guilty pleasure song?
Ooh.
And have fun with
okay.
this. This is a fun answer.
Okay, so I kind of already have an answer to this that I've talked to people about. My guilty pleasure artist is Katy Perry. You know,
okay.
Katy Perry is
not
the
the first
bomb.
time we've heard this one.
Katy Perry's the bomb. If I got to pick one song, I think it's going to be "Roar."
Okay.
That I can just really jam out with it, man. Like I'm not a huge like pop guy, but Katy Perry she just does it for me, man.
I dig it. Like I said, not the first time she's been the
Really?
guilty pleasure artist.
Okay.
But I don't think that was the song from before. So we're
Okay,
still
at least I'm not stepping on toes.
No,
then.
well, I'm just at the end of the year. I'm thinking of putting together like a playlist that's all the guilty pleasure songs from all the episodes.
You know, if
What
so
do
many
y'all think?
people are,
If you want that, put that in the comments. There we go. Make that happen.
if other people are picking it though, maybe I shouldn't feel so guilty.
No,
Maybe
no.
she's just awesome. I mean, that's
Katy Perry is awesome. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
There's been very few guilty pleasure songs that I'm like, no, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I'm kidding. Like, you know, but no, that's a good answer. That's a solid track.
Yeah, she's killer.
All right, now we're going to officially wrap it up. I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
It's all good.
All right, y'all, this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jam Box. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, do all the things, push all the buttons. You know how it works. And, it's hot as shit, so I'm sorry we're all sweaty and stuff. I usually don't call it out, but I got to tell you, it's like 90 degrees right now while we're doing this. So, big shout outs to y'all checking it out. Thank you, Winslow, for being here. This has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jam Box. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Winslow.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all. That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.